I think Josh is trolling us. That's the only explanation that makes any sense to me right now. And I've already asked him if he's trolling us. I sent him a message and he hasn't gotten back to me yet, but this just feels so urgent. I feel like I need to film it to document where my head is right now while it's spinning with wild conspiracy theories. I think, well, first of all, I've got the Notaklon here. And ever since it's been announced, before it was announced, when I was looking at the dang thing, when I was doing my demo, I was like, hey, it'd be fun to mod this so that you can have control over the channel switch. And everyone's been saying the same thing. Not everyone, but people having that thought have been saying the same thing on the internet ever since the launch. Well, Josh just an hour ago posted to the JHS Pedals users kind of official group this little 2.5 paragraph thing here. I want to make a quick public statement about the new Nota. I keep seeing questions about why it doesn't have a channel foot switch. The biggest reason is this: it's not meant to simulate a multi-channel amp. The clean mode is a preamp style boost circuit that I reverse engineered from a real effect unit made by Howard Dumble and now owned by John Mayer. It's designed to enhance and or push clean tones beautifully. The dirt channel, on the other hand, is an overdrive that harkens to the tone and feel of an overdriven Dumble. Okay? This is the part that I've highlighted. There's really no practical reason to switch between these two sections live. They're not meant to be used like amp channels. This has to be like a gag of some sort, right? I'll get to my theory. I'll get to my theory after I finish reading the whole thing. I don't remember if the rest of it matters at all because I kind of blacked out when I read that last sentence there. Instead, they're two separate circuits. That's not really a surprise. Each built around the lore and vibe of Dumble, not an attempt at modeling a full amp. That's fine. That's fine. I'll circle back to that. When I design and release a pedal, I've spent countless hours thinking through every aspect of it. I believe you. I think you've built a gag. I think you've built a little puzzle into this. I think you did this on purpose, Josh. I spent countless hours thinking through every aspect of it. The Notaklon was intentionally designed this way. That said, if you want to mod it, go for it. Obviously, I'm not against the idea of turning it into something else for fun. I just want to be clear that this design isn't missing anything. It's exactly what I intended it to be. If you want a Dumble amp simulation pedal, go buy the Universal Audio heart emoji. I completely respect and believe what Josh is saying when he says that this was designed intentionally in every possible way. That this feature is extremely intentional. But I think there is a puzzle box situation here. I think this is a dare to the modding community, which in a way is like, it's kind of like a Willy Wonka style thing, but with Josh, this is all speculation on my part. I'm just imagining things here. With Josh just like doing something that hints back at his roots, at the modding culture that brought him to being the Josh Scott that we all know today. Let's crack it open. I could sit here and flap my gums, so let's crack it open. What I want to do is I want to show what I've already looked at as far as modability on this thing. Because I want to mod it. I actually already bought foot switches to mod it, thinking, oh man, this might be easy. I bought a foot switch here. I could drill a hole right there and have an extra foot switch to, jumper cable this thing. But seriously though, why wouldn't someone want to switch between those two sounds with a foot switch while they're playing live? You've got a great sounding like preampy push into kind of light gain sort of sound on the clean side. And then you've got the full-blown overdrive to distortion sort of stuff's going on here with all the EQ difference between the two. Like, it's like having two completely different sounds that you can dial in with different volumes and outputs. So you can set them wherever you want to unity, above, below, or whatever. I do not believe that Josh doesn't see why people would want that. I spent a whole video putting this thing together for you guys, and now I'm going to take it apart for you guys. So that's the back of that switch right there. Oh, that's important. There's the switch. There's the back of it. When I cracked this thing open the other day, hoping to take a peek to see if I have the guts and the brains to do this, I was very discouraged to see that the back of this switch has, oh my gosh, 10 pins, possibly? It's not joking around. I'm already intimidated by this guy right here with 9 leads on it, and I can look up all sorts of diagrams for this. I have no idea what switch that is. I have no idea where everything is going, how many different components are being changed and selected when you flick that switch going through all 10 of those little connections there. By the way, I do think that looking at these things, someone with a decent hand with a soldering iron would be able to connect things to those little posts in there, those little solder joints. I think it's totally possible, which is part of my conspiracy here, is that that component is left in a place and treated in a way with raised soldering on pins where someone could mod from there way easier than around all these other micro SMD style components that are going on. There's things on here so tiny that you're never gonna swap it out. It's like, I don't know how people would do that. I'm sure there's people who do that stuff, but I can't imagine it myself. And if I can't imagine something, it must be impossible, right? So I'm just gonna take the whole dang thing apart now, because I want to look at the other side of that circuit board. I should have taken photos of all this when I was doing the assembly. This is Josh trolling us. Look at what he's making me do. Okay, now I'm going to photo document both sides of all this stuff here, and I'll put it up on the screen, and those of you who are smart enough to do circuit traces and figure out mods and stuff, you can pause the video and really examine what's going on here. Sorry, I gooped this. I wonder if that will be a problem. No, someone's going to be able, it's just the on-off switch. It's just the bypass. Someone's going to be able to figure out what was going on under there, right? That's not going to be a problem. Do you guys... I just dumped all my nuts and washers everywhere. Do I sound crazy? And am I just way off base here? I'm sorry, Josh, if I'm way off base here. I'm going to give Josh the option. I wouldn't give this to any other company in this situation, because I honestly do think this is Josh being a rascal. But if Josh says, hey, Ryan, that's not great, I'll take it down. If he thinks that this is, damaging somehow to, his business, then obviously I'm going to take it down. But I think that this is hilarious. If this is what he's doing, I think it's hilarious. I think it's smart. I think it's funny. I think it's engaging. I think that there's elements here that a lot of consumers aren't really ready to think about as far as the price points of pedals go. A big thing about any product in any market is price branding. As a kit, this thing is already pretty stacked. The last one, the Notaklon, was only 3 knobs. Where, you know, everyone who understands circuit design and pedal guts and stuff like that will make arguments about what the components actually cost and stuff like that. You have to maintain price branding on things. Pedals have a certain way that they go. The more knobs, the more they cost, the more foot switches and little things. But it adds to the perceived value, and you use extra perceived value on pedals that are seemingly more complex that can be charged a higher price for. You use those pedals to subsidize pedals that actually are too expensive to produce at your, you know, price branding. It's a whole complicated thing within any industry of manufacturing. You're using some products to subsidize others. Some are more simple and more complex than others. And you have to maintain this relationship with the customer with the price points so that they always have a perception of what the value of your product is. Am I getting way, way, way too far into the weeds here? What I'm saying is, if this kit had come with an extra foot switch or a red remote plug on the side, or if they had moved the presence trim pot to the face and turned this into a 6-knob 2-foot switch with an expression on the side, it would have put this into a different price point. The parts difference as far as like price stuff goes probably would have been relatively close in the mind of a consumer, but it's complicated math once you're actually running a manufacturing business, you know. And I've never technically ran a manufacturing business, but I get a privileged behind the scenes look into a lot of gear companies. And I have actually worked in manufacturing before. I was in the apparel industry. T-shirts. I was a designer, but I was also doing, everyone does all sorts of stuff in an office. I was also managing catalogs and orders and stuff like that. I saw what things cost. I saw like, oh, this type of stitch commands a different price than that type of stitch, even though it's the same amount of thread coming from the same machine. It's because there's different perceptions of price point, you know? Do people get that? Do people understand that? I know that there's folks out there who want to build all sorts of conspiracies like, oh, pedals should be $20, and they just flat out don't understand manufacturing or running businesses. But there's a whole element to pricing where it's not made up. This stuff is important. No one was even complaining about the price of these things, and they shouldn't. It's a really fun product for $129. I've just gone on my own side tangent here. So anyways, was any of that necessary or important? Did anyone walk away with new information in their heads or, you know, thoughts that they hadn't considered? Do you guys agree with me? Is this a gap? Is this like a community engagement thing? Is this a dare? Is this a puzzle box? I feel like Josh had this left in here, had this included, knowing full well it would be fun to swap between those two sounds in a live playing scenario. I think it's very clever. So anyways, who knows? Maybe I'll end up deleting this later. Hopefully this doesn't ruin my career.